If you are a frequent listener to the podcast, you know that we have been sponsored by Fuji Sports for quite some time now. Whether you're looking for apparel, equipment, bags, or accessories, Fuji Sports has got it covered. Go to fujisports.com to see the latest selection of everything you need for your jiu-jitsu, judo, or MMA journey. That's fujisports.com. Let me take a minute to tell you about RŌL TV. If you're looking to take your jiu-jitsu to the next level and supplement your BJJ education, then RŌL TV has you covered. RŌLAcademy.tv has over 1,500 videos covering individual techniques, positions, and concepts, including seminars and workshops with top-level competitors and instructors like Chris Wojcik, Robert Drysdale, Aaron Hurley, Emily Kwok, and more. Whether you are a beginner or more advanced student, RŌL TV is the online platform that can take your jiu-jitsu to the next level. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. This helps us bring you the great guests and amazing content that you've come to expect. On this episode, Thomas and his guest discuss the pressure put on young athletes, mindset, the importance of focusing on what you can control, and more. Here's the RŌL Radio with BJJ Black Belt under Vagner Rocha and Vagner Rocha Martial Arts, and a top competitor in both the IBJJF and ADCC, Jasmine Rocha.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live. Welcome to the show, Jasmine.
Awesome. Thank you
Professor,
for having me.
how are you? How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
How was your training this morning?
It was good. It was hard. It was very intense. We trained this morning at Fight Sports. My dad ran the practice, and we did 30-minute rounds. And then at the end of the 30-minute rounds, we had 10 minutes of specific mount and back. Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible, but in the good way, you know?
Well, I was about to ask you, is that terrible in a way like you're dragging your feet to go next time, or is it terrible like it was hard because we can do hard things?
It was hard because we can do hard things. That's exactly it. You know? That's who we are as athletes, you know? We gotta do the hard things.
Is that your mentality? Is that your mindset every time you get to the academy, or do you have bad days and you drag your feet?
Yeah, sometimes we have bad days. It's normal. You know, I'm a human, you're a human. Sometimes we'll just have bad days. Sometimes you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to go. But you're like, you know, you kind of have to go. You get beat up. But everybody has their good days and everybody has their bad days. And it's very normal.
Well, let me ask you right off the bat. I don't think you need any type of introduction. I mean, a lot of people know who you are. And if you work very hard to establish that. But also you are being brought up in next to your father, which arguably is one of the biggest names in jiu-jitsu as it exists today, one of the biggest figures, one of the pioneers. Do you ever feel pressure from that perspective, being in his shadow? Do you feel like you're in his shadow, or not really?
So this question kind of like, sometimes my answer changes, because sometimes I feel like maybe when I was younger, a little bit, never pressure from my dad. My dad was always super chill. He was always like, I don't care if you win. I just want you to train jiu-jitsu, and that's it. Like, he didn't care if I became a professional with it, or he just wanted me to train jiu-jitsu. That was it. It was very simple, you know, simple ask. But the world, you know, the world's like, oh, who are you going to be? Are you going to be like your dad? Or like, you know? So, you know, for a little bit, maybe a little bit you felt that pressure and stuff. But as I got older, I was like, nah. I was like, you know, I love when people start putting pressure on me. Like, all right, you know, doubt me or put too much pressure on me. Like, that's when I shine, you know? So nowadays, I'm like, there's no pressure, you know? There's more pressure on the other person than there is me. Like, look who's in my corner, you know? Look who you're facing. That's your problem, not mine, you know?
I love the mentality. I mean, that's a phenomenal way of thinking about this, because many would think about it like, I have to deliver, but like what you're talking about is like, no, I don't think so. Look who you're against. I mean, the tables have turned now, right? Like, look at the camp I have versus what you got. Who are you bringing in your corner, right?
I think about 4 years ago, I used to have, as soon as I started getting higher level, I would like to say the end of my brown belt career into black belt, I did start to feel a lot of pressure. And it was, the eyes, more cameras, getting more well known. I started feeling that. And I started having that, like, I have to perform mentality. I have to do this. And I started losing a lot. It was terrible. And my dad told me, it was crazy. My dad told me, he was like, hey, he was like, you don't suck. This is just your mentality. He was like, you just got to change what's happening in your mind. He was like, he always says, he's like, you have to find a professional in everything to be a professional. He's like, you want to wrestle? You find a professional wrestler. You don't go to a jiu-jitsu gym to wrestle. You want to do jiu-jitsu? You go to a professional. You want your nutrition? You go to a professional. You want strength and conditioning? You get a professional. You want massage? You get a professional. So everything to him was like, you get a professional. It was like, you need to find a professional for your mental, for your coaching. And I was like, okay. It just kind of, okay, Dad, whatever. And literally the same day, I got a DM in my requests from this guy. Hey, I'm a mental health coach. I'm looking to do a free call. Are you interested? I was like, crazy. I was like, yes, let's do it. And then, sure enough, he was like, what do you feel like when you have to compete? I was like, I feel like I have to win. I have to perform. And he was like, that's what you're looking at wrong. He was like, if you're at home and you have to do the dishes, you're like, oh, I have to do the dishes. Versus you're like, oh, I want to go do the dishes real quick. I want to go do this. Versus, oh, I have to go do this. And as soon as I changed that have to mentality to that I want to mentality, the world changed. Everything changed. I was like, you know what? I want to win. I don't have to win. As long as I want to do it, I can get it done.
So why is it so hard for all of us? Because like you are talking about professional performance, essentially, right? This is what you do for a living. But there's many other people, tons of other people who do this as a hobby. They just do it as a, they just want to train. They want to get better. Perhaps, they want to compete, but not on that level as you're describing, right? And it's still hard for them. Like, it's much easier to sit on the couch and watch whatever they are watching versus showing up, right? So how do you change that mindset? How do you flip that switch to I want to versus I have to?
You have to really want it. That's it. Like if you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. If like you're there and you're like a hobbyist, for example, if they're signing up for a competition, it's because they want to do it, not because their livelihood depends on it or because professor's telling me I have to do it. Like, no, if I'm a hobbyist and I'm going to put my money to go compete and put myself on the line, it's because I want to do it. It's that simple. And at the end of the day, for a hobbyist, honestly, their goal is just to have fun, to get better and to have no pressure. And the problem is majority of the pressure comes from themselves, from expectations. People have too high of expectations. It's like, don't have any expectations of yourself. That's why I tell a lot of hobbyists, I'm like, don't have expectations. Just show up. That's it. Showing up is more than half the battle won already.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, stepping through the, door and getting stepping onto the mat is arguably one of the hardest decisions that we make, isn't
100%. I always say the start is where most people stop. I'm like, that's the hardest part. Once you start, it's like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. And how many students have you met when they are like, oh my God, so much anxiety. But once I started, it keeps flowing. I just keep showing up. It's like, and then year 2, 5 days, 10 years later, and you're like, oh yeah.
You're a black belt now. Wow. It does. It flies by. And as long as you have the right mindset and you just have fun and don't focus on the expectation, I think a lot of people focus on the training. They're like, oh, I did bad at this, or I did bad at this, or I'm getting beat up. That's the wrong mindset. That's just a mindset that they have to change. My mental coach always tells me there's 5 things that you control and only 5 things you control. You can control your attitude, your body language, your effort, your energy level, and your competitiveness. And that's all you can control. And that's it. Everything else is like, you can't control a ref, you can't control your coach, you can't control your opponent, you can't control the crowd, but you can control those 5 things. We call them our controllables. So as long as those things, you're like, all right, today my attitude and my effort was a 10. That's it. You did your job. That's that simple.
You say this, and I'm thinking about this. How many people actually don't think about those 5 points? How many people think of everything else, the entire world around them, but not those 5 things? How many people say, oh, my opponent this and that, or referee didn't, whatever. I was ripped off, or like I don't know. Like there's a list of excuses and reasonings why things didn't go well, instead of looking in the mirror, essentially, right?
That's the best way to grow, Don't look left, don't look right, look forward, look at yourself, look in the mirror, And the thing is, like, after I fight, I always have like a sheet that I fill out with my coach, and it's not like, oh, what did you do bad, or like what went wrong. It's like, how'd you feel in your attitude? I felt great, How was your body language? Good. My chest was up, my shoulders were high, my chin was up. Okay, cool. Effort and energy? Good. I pushed as hard as I could. Okay. And your attitude? It was great. And my competitiveness? Great. So as long as those things are, in the good high numbers, you're doing good. And there was one thing that I was like, sometimes I would rank myself like low. I'd be like, all right, today I had a bad day. Like I put like a 5. And he was like, why was it a 5? And I was like, oh, I was tired. It was the end of the week. He was like, if all you have is a 5 and you gave a 5, what'd you give? I was like, 100%. It was like, then it's a 10. And I was like,
see, and you bring up something really interesting here, because your effort, let's just say, it's not based on your best performance, but it's based on where your capability is today, right? Which means it's a variable, right? It changes. Today, I might be able to deliver 10 times more than I was able to deliver yesterday, but it doesn't mean that I didn't give 100%, right?
I don't agree more. I don't think people look at them like them. They're like, oh, like, I see this all the time in the gym, and it's something that just like, it bothers me, and I'm like, hey, don't think like that. It's like, oh, I'm a blue belt, and I usually tap this green belt 5 times, but today I only tapped them like once. I'm getting worse. I'm like, it just doesn't work like that, Maybe he was having a really good day, and maybe you're tired. Maybe you had a long day at work. Maybe, like, there's always circumstance and variability. Like, people don't look at that. Like, there's just so many different variables that could just play into that, And the most important thing is just realizing that out of those 5 things, my biggest thing is effort. That's what we preach a lot in the adults class and the kids classes, is effort. If you're just coming there and dragging, and you're not giving effort, you're not going to get any results. You don't have to win rounds, which I tell the kids all the time, like, especially after they cry and they're losing. I'm like, hey, when have I ever asked you have to win this round? They're like, never. I'm like, what do I ask you? And they're like, to give effort. And I'm like, did you give effort? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and you lost, and that's okay. Like, it's that simple.
So let me ask you this. So why we are, as humans, why we are so driven based on a result versus the effort that we are giving? I mean, this happens all the time. I see this all the time. I'm sure you do same. It's like, I'm not as good as so-and-so, or I was better last week, or, I'm not growing as fast enough. Why we are so result driven?
I don't know. I think they just like the pleasure in the result. Like, it's like, oh, I feel good. Like, I did this, but the result doesn't really matter. It like, sometimes you'll go to a tournament and you'll wreck everybody, and sometimes you're the nail. Like, my dad always was like, there's always a nail, there's always a hammer, there's always a nail, there's always a hammer. So it's like, it doesn't matter the result. At the end of the day, it's about personal growth. A lot of the people are like, oh, this guy started way after me and he's already beating me up. I'm like, why are you looking in his lane? Look in your lane. Stay in your lane. Look forward. Look at you. Look in the mirror. People are very, very result driven, and not just result driven, but very attentive to other people. Like, they're very like, why am I not like this person, or why is this person doing this? It's like, just worry about you. Everybody's completely different. Some people are more athletic. Some people are more technical. Some people are more savvy. Some people are smarter. Everybody has their attributes. There's no growth in comparison.
So would you say that the growth is more important to you than the everyday results that you are getting?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I definitely think so. I think the results just give you a little, like, idea of where you're doing, but it doesn't give you, like, the final answer. Like, oh, I tapped everybody, so I'm amazing. That's it. I'm done. It's like,
But okay,
no.
so let me challenge you on this. For the sake of this conversation, some will listen to this right now and they will say, well, it's easy for you to say. You're part of one of the best teams. Your father is
Sure.
one of the best guys out there. You don't do anything else besides train. Like, you have the best environment in the world. You were born gifted. I can give you a list of things that people will say to this,
List of things.
right? Right? And what do you say to all this? Like, what's your response?
I mean, I am who I am. I'm brought up how I was brought up. I'm not gonna give it like an excuse and be like, oh yeah, I am who I am because of my dad. That's not accurate. My dad, he showed me the path, but he didn't walk it for me. He didn't hold my hand. I walked that path. There's plenty of other people in the sport who have started late and are doing well in the sport, and there's plenty of people who started before me and are not where I am today. I've had like plenty of people who wrecked me growing up as like juvenile and green belt and things like that, who at black belt now they're not on the same level as me. So it's about who you are as a person. It's not about the circumstance and things like that. That's all just outside noise. So everybody's different. If you're the person who's like determined and dedicated and hardworking, that's it. That's all you have to be. Talent only gets you so far. Who you are connected to only gets you so far. Look, the best in the world, 30 years ago, we would be talking about the Gracies, but look in the rankings today. How many Gracies do you see?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. That is true. I mean, things
No,
have changed in the last couple of decades, right?
it doesn't matter about your name. It doesn't matter who you are. It's about like who you are to yourself. Like, who are you true to yourself? Like, are you really pushing yourself the way you want to be pushed? Because there's plenty of amazing jiu-jitsu athletes with kids who don't do jiu-jitsu. So I don't think that really plays a factor in that. And there's plenty of people who are like, oh, it's just because of this person is this person. It's like, sure, think that. Okay, that's your opinion. What am I gonna do? Change your mind?
I love your mindset. I fundamentally, I love it. I wish more people thought it the same way. And, many compare jiu-jitsu to this, or use this phrase of, it is not who gets there first, but who is the last one standing. And in some ways, I find it very relatable to what you are talking about. Is like, in some sense, mind your own business. Essentially, stop looking at around you. So just look in front of you and just put your head down and get to work. And whatever that means to you, if you do this long enough, like, you will achieve the goals in your life, right?
I agree, 100%. Your work will show. It's that simple. If you train half-ass, you're gonna get half-ass results. It's that
That
simple,
is true.
man. Like,
That is true.
I've seen plenty of people, especially with the kids nowadays. The kids are coming up, and there's a lot of big opportunities, and all these kids got Instagram, and they're sponsored. It's crazy. It's awesome, but it's crazy at the same time. It's like, oh, little Johnny's not beating up this kid anymore. I'm like, just focus on your son. Like, focus on getting him long term. Don't focus on the short term goal of beating up this person. Long term goal is longevity in jiu-jitsu and staying in jiu-jitsu, because in a year from now, little Johnny's just gonna quit. If you're putting that kind of like, oh, go do this, look at this person. People are too busy looking left and right. They're never looking forward.
Now since you brought this up, like, I'm thinking about this, you are absolutely right. I feel like a lot of the parents are so focused on even like the attention that the child gets versus
Yes.
versus them just simply enjoying whatever happened of just kids being kids, and we like
Enjoy the
just loving,
process.
just go and mess around, go and beat the crap out of each other. It's like, just be boys or be girls, and
That's it.
it's like the expectation, like even going to local tournaments, and it's like these parents, some of them like get like they yell that like, oh my God, what are you doing? Do you see
They
that
get
often?
crazy so often. Like, to tell you that I'm the head now of the kids program at our gym, and it's crazy. The hardest part of the kids program is the parents. And that's it. That's all I have
So
to say.
not to put you on a spot, but I'm actually curious. Like, what are you thinking to yourself? Like, you watching a practice or a camp training or perhaps even a tournament, like, and you're sitting on a sideline. You know what your job is, right? You're the leader, you're the coach, you're the instructor, but then you have one or two or three of those parents, like, going nuts. I mean, like, what are you thinking to yourself? Like,
Normally, I try to talk to the parents, especially like the ones, like, especially if they're like our like main competitor parents. I'm like, hey, don't do that. Don't be that person. Your job as a parent is to support your child, and that's it. Your job is not to coach them. Your job is not to tell them they did good or did bad. You can ask them, hey, how was your effort today? It was good. Awesome. Cool. That's it. That's your sole job. Because the second you start to blur those lines with the kids and they start to relate jiu-jitsu with your love for them, because that's how kids see it. The amount of kids that I see lose a match and go, my dad's going to be mad at me. He's not going to love me anymore. I'm like, your love with your child shouldn't correlate with their results.
Nope.
At all. And even if you don't intentionally do it, you're doing it by talking to them like you're their coach. You're not their coach. Those lines are very, very easily blurred as a kid. Their results and love are like at the same level with the kids in their mind.
Yeah.
So you don't want to mix those lines. Just tell them, you did a good job. Let's go home. And that's it. If your child is doing bad or something like that, speak to the coach. Let the coach tell them. That's it.
And I think what's also very interesting about this, that most of those parents don't train.
None. And the ones that usually are like start training, the newfound respect.
I know.
Every single time I'm like, there's always one of those parents. I'm like, hey, you should train. They're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, come do a free week, bro. Usually either they stick with it and they gain like this, like, wow, or they quit and they're like, they realize that it's hard, but they're just not tough enough to do it. They're usually like, they start to go back to put more pressure on their kid, and I'm like, yeah. Like, you saw how hard it was. Like, imagine as a kid, it's so hard as a kid to control your emotions while getting choked and trying to not panic. And as an adult, we already understand. We have years of like figuring out how to control our emotions and stay calm and patient and things like that. But as a kid, it's like panic. Like, you're in mount, you can't get out, and they're doing shoulder pressure. What the heck? Like, plus your parent yelling at you.
Yeah.
Like, in our gym, we don't allow any coaching. Anytime I see a parent coach, I'm like, hey, stop. Cut it off. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I have parents screaming hammer choke and ham sandwich. I don't know what that means, but it's not jiu-jitsu. Those two in particular I've heard a couple times, and I'm like,
what does that mean?
What is a hammer choke?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
I don't know either. And I asked the parent, and they were like, the thing with the legs. And I was like,
what thing with the legs?
No clue, man. I'm like, if I don't know, like, how's the child supposed to know? And the biggest thing is, like, especially with the parents coaching, even if they're not giving out crazy direction, kids have known their parents since birth. If I got an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, those 9 years of their life, they're just listening to their parents. The second I start coaching and their parents start coaching at the same time, whose voice are they going to gravitate towards?
Yep.
Not mine. I'm not winning that battle.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But at the same time, it's like, why do you bring them here? If you want to teach them jiu-jitsu, teach them in your garage. Like, you bring them here to learn from me. Then shut up. It's that simple. I tell parents all the time, I'm like, be quiet, please. I'm like, are you sitting in the classroom with your kid at school? No? Really? Okay. You're not going to sit in the classroom here and talk.
Well, it's like what you just a moment ago, you said that you got the advice of, listen, you want to be professional, let the professional deal with it. In a similar sense, that's fully applicable to the same thing. Like, you want your child to learn jiu-jitsu, allow the professional to teach them. Like, and just what you said a moment ago, like, if you want to teach them, then, do it in your garage, do it in your living room. Like, there's no shame in it, and I don't think anybody will judge you for it. But don't expect the same results, and don't expect, like, you can't come in and, run your own show. I mean, yeah,
I know. That's the parents. They're just getting crazier and crazier, man. Especially after, like, I'm telling you, I was at a ADCC last weekend coaching, and I was like, God, these parents are crazy. They yell the craziness, like the craziest things I've ever heard, and they're just like, so much pressure on these little kids. I'm like, they're not even having fun. They're just crying when they get off
Yeah.
the mat, or like ripping off their shirts and flexing for the cameras. I'm like, there's nothing cool about that, you know.
Yeah.
And then the weekend before that, I was also at a competition coaching, and I had one of my kids like he won his match, and as soon as he won, he started doing some like crazy celebration. And I called him over. I was like, cut that out. I was like, you're not gonna represent this gym acting a fool like that. I was like, there's two people that step on the mat. One wins and one loses every time. I was like, you don't need to celebrate like that, because you wouldn't like if he celebrated on you like that. Like, it's cool, flex your little muscle, but like trying to hit a backflip and like standing over somebody, it's like, why is that necessary? It's like, good job, you won.
Do you remember that kind of behavioral reaction? I don't even know what to call it. But 10 years
Behavior.
ago. 10
No.
years ago.
When I was a kid competing,
Yeah.
I didn't see none of that.
So
None of that.
why do you think that changed? Like what happened? What happened with the society? Like what the hell is going on?
I'm gonna have to blame technology.
Oh, listen,
Everybody,
we can go on that rant because I'm gonna start just.
I'm gonna have to blame technology. Like, I see 6-year-olds following me on Instagram. It's like parent run account. I'm like, why do they need that?
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, it's like once they get to maybe like 13 or 14 and things like that, it's like, okay, you know, they're starting to build a brand and things like that. But like 5, 6, 7, 8, like why? Like why are you putting this pressure? Why are you giving your kid these long nicknames and calling them the killer or the soul crusher or the what? I
There are actually kids who have nicknames Soul Crushers.
had a parent ask me to I do patchwork on like the clothes. What was it? Soul Ripper.
Skull.
No, Soul
Wait,
Ripper.
you're a Soul Ripper. You are actually serious about
Soul Ripper. And
this.
I
You are
was like,
serious about this.
so serious. I was like,
What is the purpose behind this? Like,
I was
I'm
like,
laughing,
Soul
but like,
Ripper.
what is the purpose behind this? To stand out, I suppose.
His dad said that he thought it was cool. It's always the parents,
Okay.
man. It's like
It
there's no way
is.
that
I mean, how
there's no way the
7-year-old
kid
is going
came
to
up
come
with
up with
that.
this?
The kid's 8. The kid's 8. There's no
Right.
way he came up with Soul Ripper. Make that make sense. I'm telling you, a majority of the parents live through their kids, and that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
they didn't accomplish what they wanted to accomplish with their life, and they're trying to live it through their kid now. I'm like, why? Like your child doesn't need that pressure. They don't deserve that pressure, you know? Just let them have fun. Let them learn jiu-jitsu. Not every kid's gonna be a competitor. Not every kid's gonna follow this professionally. Not every kid's gonna be amazing. Just let them go with the flow. And that's it.
I hope a lot of parents listen to this. I
I
hope
hope so
thousands of
too.
parents listen to this. Listen,
I hope none of the parents I'm talking about listen to it though.
well, maybe they should, you know, and
It's
maybe
true.
there will be like epiphany there. Like, oh,
It's
are they
true.
talking about me?
I'm gonna go to work and my dad's gonna be like, "There's been 5 cancellations because of you, Jazz."
You're a contributor to this. Let's rewind here a little bit. You started around 5 years old, which is what we are describing right now. Do you remember your first day, or was it more like it's just like that's all you remember?
Yeah, I do. I was terrible. I really
Do
didn't
tell,
like
do
it.
tell.
My dad had just opened his first gym, and it was the first kids class ever. It was just me and one other kid. The kid was way older than me, and he had to have been like 8, 9, and I was like 5, so it was a good age difference. And he just made us like practice hip escapes and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I just progressively, as getting older, I was just like, I don't want to do this. And I would like cry every class. Like, I would throw a tantrum. Like, I was the kid that was screaming. Like, my dad would drag me on and he'd be like, Jazz, listen, today you're just going to do the jog, just the warm up. I was like, okay, this is a good negotiation. I'll just do the warm-up. And then after the warm-ups would be done, I was like, can I leave? And he'd be like, just one drill. I just want you to do one of the drills. And I'd be like, okay. And then by the end of it, I was doing the whole class. Every day he would get me with the same thing. He'd be like, just one. And I'd be like, okay. And I hated it. I would just cry. And I remember all the parents used to be like, Vagner, just let her be. She doesn't want to do it. Don't force her to do anything. He's like, listen, this is like school. She doesn't have to be good. She doesn't have to compete. She just has to train jiu-jitsu. That's it. You have to go to school. It's mandatory. You don't have. He never asked me to bring home straight A's.
Have you felt pressure in a sense that you didn't have a choice?
I didn't have a choice as for training. Like career-wise, he was like, "Go do whatever you want." He was like, "If you want to do jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu's hard." It's like so, but I never felt pressure on him in that way. No, at the beginning, I'm young. What the heck do I know at 5, 6 years old? He's like, this is good for you. This is gonna get you tough. This is gonna teach you life. That's what jiu-jitsu always is and was to me and my dad. It's like jiu-jitsu is life. It's very practical. You gotta assess situations under high pressure circumstances, and that's very important for kids to learn at a young age because then they become adults who don't know how to control their emotions and then act out in rage and then find themselves in sticky situations, unfortunately, because they never learned that young. The amount of people I see who like trained as kids and then their parents allowed them to quit, come back and always go, man, I wish I had stuck with this, So
Forget
I'm
about
glad
kids. That it happens with
right?
adults.
That too,
I literally had this conversation like 3 weeks ago. Somebody they came back after years of being off the mat, and the first thing they said, "I wish I didn't quit." I was like,
always.
It's
I
like the
always hear
same
it, man.
story.
It's the same sad story every time too.
Yeah.
And I just never felt pressure on it, and I'm grateful that my dad forced me to do jiu-jitsu. But he never forced me to do anything else. Like he never forced me like to go compete. He was never like, Jasmine, you need to win that round, or he never. He would just put me to roll, and he would just like walk away. I was just there,
You just mentioned that Jiu-Jitsu teaches us life lessons. It teaches us some of these things that it's difficult to learn somewhere else, and a lot of us need those lessons.
Agreed.
What is the biggest lesson that you learned?
There's a lot of really good ones, but I think I learned to become a very hard worker, disciplined. I didn't like jiu-jitsu. I was already, by the time I was like 12, 13, I had just started to like jiu-jitsu.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. So from 5 to 12.
I was terrible.
You don't, that's a long time to. All right. Tell me what terrible means to you. Tell me what that means to you.
Like, I was the kid who was screaming and trying to run out the car to not go train and like.
No, you're not running and screaming at 12 years old. Come on.
I was pretty bad, man. I was bad. I did not like it. It wasn't until like there was one instant in particular that made me go, okay, I kind of like jiu-jitsu. I'm getting good at jiu-jitsu.
What is it?
I have this story. You're gonna love this one. I tell this story all the time because it's that story. It's like my jiu-jitsu testimony, man. I always tell the parents, I'm like, listen, don't worry about what your kids doing now. Worry about it when they get a teen. Like when they hit that teenage, that's when things click, Keep them in jiu-jitsu till they're a teen and they'll figure the rest out. And when I hit about, I think I was like 11, we went to a tournament. And I just kind of started getting a little good. I wasn't like too good. And there was this girl that I was going to fight. And she showed up in a pinky. And I instantly started. I've always been a shit talker since I was young. So I instantly turned to my dad. And I was like, this girl's in a pinky. She's going to suck. I'm going to wreck her. This is going to be awesome. And I'm talking shit. Sure enough, I went out there. This girl dismantled me. Like, when I tell you this is the most humble pie, my dad was laughing. This man was laughing at me afterwards. He was like, bro, you deserve that. And I was just like, man, that sucked. And then sure enough, my dad would always host these in-house tournaments at the gym. and you would fight the kids that you train with every day, but it would be like in a tournament setting. The parents would scream, and it was like we were against each other, and I would never win any of these rounds against any of these kids. It was like we had these 6 boys who were really, really good. They would go to all the events and they would wreck everybody. And I was just there because, I was the coach's daughter and I had to be a part of the group. And I was like in that age group, in that size, and I was like, they were probably like about a year and a half, 2 years older than me, all of them. And to tell you that they would like submit me like 5 times a roll, like every round. And this in-house tournament was coming around, and my dad knew this guy from Fuji who sent me a gi. It was like my first like sponsorship gi. The guy sent me a pink gi. Listen to this one. He sent me a pink gi. I was like,
What goes around comes around.
bro, for real. And then my dad was like, listen, at the in-house tournament, I want you to wear this gi. And I want you to like manifest that, like what happened to you. And I was like, this guy, I was like, this is a joke. Like all the boys made fun of me the whole event. They just kept like, oh, Jasmine's in a pink gi. I actually have a funny picture of it. I just saw it literally yesterday. I'll show you the picture. And I was just like, oh, this is gonna suck. And then sure enough, I went out. I subbed all 6 of them. I had never tapped any of them in training. I subbed all 6 of them. Gi and no gi, and won. It was the best day of my life. My dad was like, I don't even know what happened. After that day, something clicked. I became a different Jasmine. Started like training hard. I was like, you know what? I like this. I was like, I'm gonna do this. I was like, this is what I want to do with my life, and that's from there it was up. And it was
What was it? Was it a
it,
pinky?
it was the
Was it a
pinky, man.
secret?
It was the pinky, man. I genuinely don't know what it was. Something just clicked. Like something in me was like, you know what? I want to win. I want to fight. They're making fun of me
For
in
you.
this pinky. Like I'm gonna beat you up. And that was the
What
best day.
walk me back to that first tournament where you got destroyed. Your confidence is at the highest.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, you talking trash, right? Like
it
it's
was
just coming
terrible.
out, right? You slap hands, you slap and bump. It's starting, and it's not going your way. What's in your mind?
Survival. At that point, I was just like trying to just like not get tapped. I was like, you know what? I'm getting beat up like
Do,
20-0.
do you comprehend what's happening to you, or like
At that age, yeah. At that age, I was for sure comprehending. I was like, you
yeah?
know what? I'm getting wrecked. It's like, this is embarrassing.
So then time passes by, and you have the in-house tournament in your favorite pingy. Do
Yeah,
you still have the pingy, by the way? I'm just kidding.
I don't have it.
I'm
I
just
passed
kidding.
it down, actually.
So, obviously, you rack everybody, you clean the house, you clean the mats. Is there a correlation in your mind between this and the previous one that didn't go well? Like, are you connecting the dots here? Are you saying like this is a big change in my life here?
Yeah, it was definitely, both those moments were big changes. One was very, very humbling for me. It made me realize, like, you know what? Like, you don't want to be that person. No matter who you are, who you have in your corner, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that person. And it made me like gave me that false idea that this pinky was giving me some sort of powers or something like that. Everybody when they get their black belt, they're like, "Oh, the black belt gives you powers." It was something like that for me,
Yeah.
and something just switched. In my mind, I was like, you know what? I don't want to be that kid getting wrecked. I want to be the person in the pinky wrecking. And that's what happened.
Would you agree with a simple thought of we all chase the victories, but we need the losses in order for us to get those victories?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, definitely. Losses are the most important part of the journey. My dad's always saying, he's like, winning is cool. You have fun, but you don't learn a lot from winning. He's like, losing sucks, but you learn a lot from losing. I'm like, sure. Every time I lose, I learn so much.
Would you consider that pink event, whatever the pink event, as a biggest loss of your life? Like, would that be the most memorable one, or was there one that really brought up
No,
more?
that one's the really most memorable one. Like every time I've lost, probably since then, I was like, you lose. It's normal. But that one was just like, I was like, this sucks. This is embarrassing. Like I was talking all this smack, and I'm eating my humble pie, So yeah, that one was like one of those big ones. But nowadays, like losing sucks. I'm not gonna say that losing doesn't suck, but at the same time, I'm like, like I'm at such a high level now that I'm like, if you lose, it happens. As long as like I said, I just go out there and I give what I can at my best, and if I lose at my best and I train my hardest, like there's there's nothing to do about it. Then it's like you win some, you lose some, and at this level, like I said, there's always one winner and there's always one loser.
Yeah, that is true. That could not be more true. I mean, that's every single match, right? Let's pivot this a little bit. I mean, you train in arguably one of the most competitive teams there out there. At the same time, women jiu-jitsu is growing. There's no argument about that. But the footprint of women jiu-jitsu is significantly smaller than what men, divisions are. I mean, there's no argument about this.
Agree.
What has been your feeling about stepping into a room full of men and being part of one of the most competitive teams, while being small? I mean, there's no argument. I mean, you're a small statue, you're not that big. You step like next to your dad, you look like have a like it is what it is, right? And like
Yeah.
it's just there's a bunch of monsters in the room that you step into every single day. What is your mindset going into this? Like every
Well,
single day you step on a mat.
well, honestly, personally, at our gym, I actually do have a lot of girls training, so lucky
Well,
for
but that's
me.
today. But that's
Yeah,
today, right? But like
exactly. But
if we
before,
rewind this just a
yeah,
handful of years
before
back,
there
yeah,
wasn't,
and that's kind of what I mean by this. Today, I feel like women jiu-jitsu is growing and it has more presence, and there is a women programs and so on. Like that drive exists everywhere,
Agree.
all around. It's very visible. But as you were growing up, none of that existed, in a very small percentage, right? So like
There was very few girls when I was growing up.
many women would quit. Like many would
Yeah,
say, like, screw this. This is nonsense. Like,
two biggest things were, one, I didn't have an option to quit,
fair
and
enough.
two, my dad always was like, listen, if you can beat these boys up here, you'll beat the girls up there. And that was always it. And I was always like, sure. Like if I can
Yeah.
handle it with the boys, if I can hang with the boys, the girls aren't ready for it. And I think
Yeah.
that helped me a lot build like aggressivity. Like in my fights, if you watch me fight, I'm a
Yeah.
very aggressive fighter. And that comes from dealing with the boys, Fight
Yeah.
the boys all growing up. The girls don't have that aggression. It's not a thing,
Why?
But
Why do you think that?
I'm not sure. I think that girls have way too much of this idea of like respect and like being polite and things like that, or like it's dirty or things like that. It's like, no, bro, we're fighting. Like,
Are you
when we
not
shake
respectful?
hands, I'm respectful until we're fighting. Like
what
as
you're
soon as we
saying
shake
is
hands,
what
like
you're saying is we can be friends after we're done fighting.
we can be friends before too, but once we shake hands, that's it, like it's done. Like, I have a job and you have a job and that's it. And some women don't match that. They don't like that. And I get a lot of that when I fight. Some people are like, "Oh, you're too rough." I'm like, "Too rough?" I'm like, "You're soft." Go to ballet if you want something soft. Like
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu is rough. It's gritty. The women are focusing too much on being arte suave and beautiful jiu-jitsu and technique and things like that. Yeah, technique gets you far. What happens when we have the same technique? What happens when we're at the same level? Who's got grit that's coming out on the other end? I got grit.
Yeah.
And I don't think they factor that into it.
Do you feel like the female jiu-jitsu presence is going to be as big as male at some point of time?
It's a hard question, right? I would like to say yes. I don't know. It's growing. Yes, it's growing a lot. But it's not even close to the size of the men yet. It's not even. It's not even a fraction. I really do hope to see one day that it does grow to that size and to that extent. That is the goal overall. but I think that it takes like the right kind of mindsets and the right kind of people at the highest level to push that and to get it there. And there's, certain people that are not it, some people have different mindsets, and it's cool to have different mindsets, but to have like the same idea of like what jiu-jitsu is really about. Jiu-jitsu about growing love for jiu-jitsu. That's when I teach jiu-jitsu, my job is to teach love for jiu-jitsu, not teach like how to be the best or how to beat everybody or how to win by points and things like that. It's about love. That's it. When you can teach someone to love jiu-jitsu, they will forever stay in jiu-jitsu. That's the biggest picture you want to paint. A lot of people don't paint that picture, and it makes it very hard to grow. Women are very sensitive, so it is even harder to grow women's jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu has always been like a male-dominated sport because it looks normal. It's like two men fighting, wrestling. It looks normal. But I think that stigma is slowly going away. So yeah, I do really hope and think that jiu-jitsu will get that big for the women.
You say teach how to love jiu-jitsu. What does that look like? What does love of jiu-jitsu mean to you?
Embrace the struggle. Embrace it. It's hard. Jiu-jitsu is not easy. You gotta embrace that struggle and that adversity is just gonna help you grow. And that's it. A lot of people think
But that's
that
almost counterintuitive, right? Like from one side we say, oh, come on, join, come on, let's have fun, let's work, let's learn something new. We have this cool community here. We are all part of this group. And then on the flip side, we say, well, this is hard. You're gonna get smashed. You're gonna get
it is
destroyed.
hard.
And then, in female perspective, everybody's twice of your size on the top of all this. Doesn't that counter each other?
Yes and no, right? Because yes, we're gonna invite people in and be like, it is fun. We do have a good community, but the community is all in the same consensus. We all get beat up.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting beat up. No matter who you are, there's always somebody higher than you. You're never the top dog always. There's always going to be somebody above you and somebody below you. And the people who stick around to jiu-jitsu, the people who really dedicate their lives and stick around, are the people that realize that it is hard, but that hard is good. Hard helps you grow. Easy is never going to help you grow. And the people who quit are, unfortunately, majority of the times, usually quitters all around. Quitters in life. Quitting in jiu-jitsu wasn't an option for me because my dad wanted me to realize that you can't quit in life. Just because something's hard doesn't mean you should quit it. And that's kind of the mindset that we have to teach that in jiu-jitsu. And I tell people all the time, like, especially like parents of kids, I'm like, listen, this is hard. Your kid will complain, they will cry, they will moan, they won't want to come some days, and that's normal. Be like, how many days do you not want to go to work? You still have to go to work. You still got bills to pay. So it's better to teach them the struggle and the suffering now than later on in life when they turn 18 and they're trying to figure things out on their own. They're like, oh, the world is hard. It's like, no, you already knew that. You've been training for 10 years. The world is tough,
Yeah,
So
that's the
I
cool
think
thing about
that
jiu-jitsu, I feel.
that
Yeah.
people have this misconception of jiu-jitsu and give these false of, oh, jiu-jitsu's fun, it's the arte suave. Yeah, it can be fun, but a lot of time it's not. Like, be honest about it, let them know what they're getting into. Like, be like, listen, you're gonna have your good days and you're gonna have your bad days, and you're gonna be the nail or you're gonna be the hammer, and you have to realize that you have to show up whether you're the nail or the hammer.
Yeah, that you nailed it right there. I mean, that's the truth. That's the truth. I hope the parents are still listening to this.
So the parents have tuned out already.
So you've been competing for a while.
Long time.
You a very long time, right? You've been on a semi-pro, if not pro circuit, if you will, competition circuit. Even before you got your black belt, you start shaping your name, your brand, your presence start shaking some mats, shaking making the waves a little bit, right? And then the black belt comes along. Talk to me about that. Many recognize that as many recognize this as at the end. Many others recognize this as a beginning. Others recognize this as a big milestone or big goal that they are chasing. How have you viewed this prior to the black belt?
So I think everybody kind of views it a little bit differently because of everybody's different, where they're at in life, like me, I grew up in jiu-jitsu, so the black belt was just gonna happen, eventually it was just another stepping stone in the books, and yes, it does make a difference. I think the black belt did make a big difference because my dad and I never won anything as a lower belt. Like, I think I won Worlds as a juvenile one time, and that was it. Every other year, I lost first or second round and never did well. And my dad was like, "It's okay. Nothing matters to black belt." And he would always be like, "Nothing matters to black belt." He would always say that, and I was always like, "Yeah, I guess, but I'd like to win," And then, sure enough, when black belt came around, it was a different thing for me. Yeah, I feel like I stepped up. As soon as I got my black belt, I think a month later, it was Pans Nogi. I got third, and then I was like, all right. I was like, I made enough points to qualify for Worlds. I was like, let's go to Worlds. Sure enough, I got second at Worlds first 3 months as a black belt. Rookie. And I was like, you know what? I was like, black belt's already looking better than every other belt. And I think that for me, black belt felt like the beginning of my professional career, and
what
just a
changed?
good beginning. What changed? Genuinely, not 1,000% sure, but I think that knowing that I got to the black belt, it was something that I conquered that mountain. I'm like, you know what? I got here, and I got here because I put in the work. I put in that effort and that energy and things like that. Why not put that even more into myself to get ready for these events? Before black belt, I don't think I ever even wanted to weightlift or things like that. My dad always was like, "You should do this. You should do this." He never forced me, but he would always be like, "You should do this." It was never like you have to go do this. He would be like, "Hey, you should do this or you should do this," and I was like, "Yeah, nah, yeah." And when I got my black belt, I was like, you know what? Shit got real. I was like, I gotta walk in. So I was like, I'm gonna start with lifting weights, and I started lifting weights, and then I started cleaning up my diet, and then I got a mental coach, and then I got a massage therapist, and then I got a nutritionist, and then I got a wrestling coach, and I just started building and adding on and adding on. And he's gonna hear this and watch this podcast, and he'll be like, "I told you so." And he's gonna be like, "I wish I'd listened to him sooner and started that at purple belt when he was telling me, blue belt." And he was like, "You should work out or you should eat right and things like that." I wish I'd listened sooner. I probably would have been way ahead of the curve. But it is what it is. I can't look back on the past and be like, "Oh." But I'm glad that things finally clicked at black belt. I was like, you know what? Things got real. I need to if this is what I want to do, I need to do it on all aspects, not just in jiu-jitsu.
Was that a pivot point when you got your black belt? Clearly things changed. Your mental approach changed to things. Would you consider this a pivot point?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a big pivot point in my life. I was like, you know what? I was like, and the black belt isn't just about competition either. In the gym, you're a black belt on the mat. You have to represent. You have to be an example for everybody else, and you have to act a certain way and show people this. It's not just being a black belt on the mats. My dad always says he always is like, I don't like to promote people to black belt just because they're good at jiu-jitsu. He's like, you gotta be a black belt in life. You gotta be a good person. You gotta have good morals. You gotta be a good example and things like that. So I definitely think that the black belt was something that was real for me. I was like, you know what, this is real. I have to step up as a person, not just on the mats, off the mats as well. So I definitely think the black belt was a pivot in my whole life, and I think it's definitely a pivot in a lot of people's lives too. Especially hobbyists when they get their black belt, I think it's the coolest thing ever. I'm like, you know what, you're a hobbyist and you reach this black belt, that's that's one mountain that you just climbed, and like now I feel like the black belt is like the white belt all over again. Like, like you're like a new black belt, but like I have one lady at the gym who's like, I think she's a 6th degree, 7th degree black belt. She's been a black belt since before I was born. I'm like, that's
Isn't
crazy.
that mind blowing?
Mind blowing. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, you're like whole light years ahead of me. Like, like that's crazy. Like, I feel like a white belt again. I'm like, it's an honor. It's cool to see. And I don't think people look at it like that. I think people are like, oh, I got the black belt.
Did you know? Did you know it was coming?
I had an inkling. I had a good idea. I was like, I've been doing good, winning a little bit. I've been a brown belt for a couple of years, and yeah, I had a good feeling. But then, getting it.
Walk me through that day. Walk me through that moment. Like, what did this look like in your mind? What's your perspective on this?
I mean, it was an awesome moment. Surrounded by people who have been a part of my growth. People who have seen me as a kid who were like, no, just let her quit, and being around that and around other people who are in the beginning of their journey too is cool to be there, and just surrounded by people who loved me and cared for me and have been helping me come up. And just getting it from my father, is always an honor. It was super cool. It was just, it was a really great moment. I was his first black belt from child program to adulthood. So that was also very cool, so.
First organic, huh?
First organic,
Walk me through that day. Walk me through that day. You wake up in the morning. You get whatever. You get to you get to the academy. Like
yeah, no.
Do you know it's happening today, or do you know it's creeping up? Like, walk me through this.
It's just like a regular belt promotion day. I went there, showed up. We host the kids belt promotion in the morning. On the whole day, the day keeps going. Then the adult belt promotion starts to come around, and I'm like, got my hair done. I'm like, am I gonna get it today? Like, are they gonna hit me today? Do I want to get it today? My back is sore. Like, is this what I want? Like, am I sure I'm ready for this? Like all these thoughts start going, and then like, we're
Did you ask? Hold on. Did you ask your dad at any point of time whether you're gonna get it or not, or this conversation is not taking place? No. Is this like a forbidden topic?
No, it's not a forbidden topic. I'm just not that person to ask. My brother was all for asking. My brother's like, "Hey, are you gonna give it to me, or like?" That's just personally who I am. I'm like, I want you to give it to me when you think I've earned it. Like, I don't want to ask for it. I don't want to know about it. When I'm ready, you give it to me, and I'll take it. Whatever you think. You're at that point. He's coach at that point. So I don't really, I'm not the fan of like asking. That's like my biggest pet peeve with parents. It's like, when is my kid gonna get it? I'm like, oh my God, just shut up. Like, just let it happen, So yeah, that day was really cool, and then it was like towards the end of the promotion, and I thought things were done, like we were wrapping it up, and then he was like, and one more thing. And then he like whipped it out of his gi, and I was like, and he like looked at me, and I was like, is it me? And then sure enough, I got my belt, and it was cool. It was awesome.
Emotional?
Maybe a little bit. I'm not really a too emotional person.
Big deal in your mind?
Yeah, definitely a big deal. Definitely a big moment. It was a big milestone. It was like, I completed something. I got a diploma. It's a big deal. It should always be a big deal. You've completed something, you've mastered something, and now you're on a new path.
Organic from the child program or from the kids program all the way to adults, all the way to black belts. That's not heard often. Like
No.
There's not a lot of kids who go through that entire progress.
It's true. There's not a lot of kids who go through the entire progress, and there's not a lot of people that stay with the same coach.
That is true. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think people are so quick to make these changes?
I think people always think the grass is greener on the other side.
Is it?
Not usually. The grass is green where you water it. It's not always greener on the other side,
Yeah.
And I think that's the misconception that people have. Like, yes, of course, if you're like a high level competitor, right? Pretend like your child's like very good, and your gym isn't just providing what you're looking for, and you love your gym because of you grew up there and loyalty and things like that. Loyalty's great, but at the same time, your career's important, that they're offering the things that you need to grow. And if you're not growing in your gym, then I can understand switching to another gym that can help you grow. But if you're growing in your gym and you're happy and you're like, you know what, maybe this gym is better, let me just switch over, which I see a lot of. The grass usually isn't greener on the other side.
That used to not be a thing.
Never.
I think this is fairly new within the last few years. I don't know, 10, maybe 5. But I mean, I started a while back, and like switching was not that common, and I feel like today it really is. It's like
It really is. People switch teams all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Is that where this is going? Like jiu-jitsu in general, where it's more of a service driven versus a team driven?
It's really looking like that, right? It's very. My thing is, like, people have this mindset that jiu-jitsu is an individual sport. It is, but it isn't. You fight individually, but everything else you do as a team. You train as a team. You prepare as a team. You lift as a team. You like everything else. Is a team. It's a team sport, but you just perform individually. And if you're constantly changing teams, how are you gonna know that oh, this team is the one for me? Oh, maybe it's not. Let me go to the next one. Like it doesn't work like that. You have to build that in that team. You have to put those roots in and hunker down in there and build that rapport with your team, your coach, and things like that. And I think the switching team, I just don't think it's cool. It's just not. It's not for me. And a lot of the people that you see that are really, really successful for the most part have come from their original professors or their original coaches and things like that, and they've stuck with them and they've seen them through and through. And that's the best kind of relationship to have, because that person knows you. That person doesn't just know what you do jiu-jitsu wise, but that person knows you. It's like, hey, you're looking a little tired. Did you not sleep good? Hey, did you not eat good? How's your weight? Like a real coach is someone who's looking after you off the mats too. It's not just on the mats, And I think that a lot of people are just looking for, oh, how can you benefit me? How can you make me better? And not how can I help this team grow? And it's the wrong mindset. I think it's wrong. But everybody's entitled.
Well, of course. I mean, to each their own, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. Everybody's going to do whatever they want. But why do you feel that everything is? You just a second ago you said, how can you benefit me versus how I can benefit the team? Why is that so strong? And that's visible everywhere. Forget about jiu-jitsu, just life in general, just
Agreed.
Professions, careers is when do I get a raise versus how do I work for it? These conversations take place all the time on a daily basis. Why do you think we are so selfish? I guess that would be the description,
That's
right?
the word.
It's a very selfish
Selfish
mindset.
is the word. People are just very self-oriented, like we were talking about earlier, results. People are so fixated on their own personal results that they don't care to help anybody else grow. And I'm always so big on this because in the team, I'm always let's think about it as numbers, right? If we have 2 people and we rate their jiu-jitsu on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say I'm an 8 and the girl that I train with is a 4. We add that up and we divide it by 2. I have an average of a 6 now. The team's a 6.
Mm-hmm.
But if I spend the whole time just wrecking her, how am I going to benefit from that? How about I make her better? If I start to make her better and she starts to grow, she's going to make me better. And then our overall average is going to go up. And that's just how teams work.
But that requires work. That requires grind. That requires putting your own effort into somebody else, and it's
a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's selfless, and it's a lot of work, and that's your goal, not just as a coach, but as a teammate. If you see your teammates not doing this right, why are you gonna be like, oh, who cares? No, if you start to make your team an average of a solid 8, anybody you go fight out there is not gonna match that, And if everybody individually grows, the team grows. And if individually I'm helping other people grow, the team grows. And as long as the team is growing together and everybody's getting better, individually you're just going to get better. It's just how it works. But if the team is weak and there's no bond, there's no roots, there's no like, hey, let's go. Hey, where have you been? Hey, do you need help with anything? If there's no any of that unification, the team doesn't grow, and maybe you grow individually, maybe, but not as much as you could. And I think that's a big factor.
Is that what separates the success from failure?
I don't know if it necessarily separates it, because there are a lot of people who are successful, and I don't want to call them selfish, but people who change a lot of teams and, move around. Mikey Musumeci is a prime example. Homeboy hops from every team I've ever seen, takes whatever knowledge he can, and then he's successful. He's very good. But at the same time, it's like,
well, let me pick your brain on this, because somebody will again listen to this and they're gonna say, well, who cares? So and so keeps jumping between the teams. Who cares? I mean, he keeps benefiting, he keeps growing. Who really cares?
Sure.
Like,
to each their own. He's growing his brand, but he's not growing jiu-jitsu. And that's the end of the day. It comes back to, how do we grow jiu-jitsu? By making everybody better and love the sport. He's, I'm going to say selfishly, moving from team to team, takes what he can from each team, grows himself, but is he growing anybody else? Is anybody else in the sport growing from that?
And I suppose this is the difference between a competitor versus a leader, or competitor versus instructor, right?
It's true.
A
There's
true
a big
leader
difference.
will grow others versus a competitor. It is a very selfish act, right? It's self-centered, focus on me only and my performance, and that really what separates those two, wouldn't it?
I agree. I definitely think that there's a big difference between being a leader, and I don't even want to say being a competitor and not necessarily a follower, but just being someone who's there just for yourself, just being selfish. I'm a competitor, but I'm also a leader, I lead by example, I'm not just there to grow myself, I'm there to help others. Sometimes there are moments as a competitor where you do have to be a little bit selfish, but I don't think it's necessarily on the mat. Like, I have to be selfish at home. Like, I have to sometimes skip going out to birthday parties or going out to hang out and things like that, because I have to be selfish for myself and be like, oh, I can't do that. I need to rest, or I need to not eat, or I need to, focus and things like that. But I think that being a real person who's like a real black belt and a real leader is someone who's trying to grow everybody and not just themselves. Like, there's a lot of teams that you see nowadays that are just growing and growing because of, like, they have that, they're unified and they're there together. Like, you see like AOJ and Atos, they're two solid teams that are being grown from the roots. Like, it's from like deep roots, there's people who've been there forever that are growing other people that have all come together from like everywhere. Like, people who started together up in Manaus or here now in the United States, all still together and things like that. And it's cool to see that those people stick together and they grow together. But I also feel like this selfish mindset is very American.
Oh, do you think so? Huh?
I think it's a mixture of both. But I don't know. I feel like the Americans are so selfish. Like, very like.
Do you think that's culturally driven?
Maybe. I definitely think so. I do think that they're very caring just about themselves, like, every time I go to Brazil, I'm like, man, these people are awesome. They're always like, hey, let's hang out, let's do this together, let's do that together. Americans are like, we'll train together. Good to see you. Bye.
Well, then let me ask you flat out, how come you're here, not there?
The jiu-jitsu, life, better. Everything's better here, except the food. Except the food.
Except the food. What's your favorite food?
Bro, I have a lot of favorite foods right now. I'm a sucker for a good burger, but when I go to Brazil, I'm just like, I'm just a fiend for some good rice and beans, some falafel, and some steak. Like, I could just eat that all day. I don't know how to explain it. It just tastes so much better. I could just eat that all day. Can't go wrong, man.
So there's no doubt that you've accomplished quite a bit. I mean, from age of 5 through the pink geese, through your black belt promotions and other things and other competitions. There's a lot of milestones and points of achievement in your life, and you are still so young. What's ahead of you? Like, what are you aiming for? Is this? Are there any specific goals on your mind at this point of time?
Yeah, specific goals for me. I'd like to win ADCC at least a couple times. I feel like one time isn't enough. I feel like there's plenty of people who've just won it once, and maybe just had a really good run, or maybe it's a fluke or something like that. But I feel like winning it like 2-3 times in a row is very like all right, you had
Sealing
that.
it, huh?
That was your division, So I definitely would like to win that a couple times. I've been playing with the idea of the MMA life,
Oh.
So I definitely think that I have the personality and the grit and stuff like that for that lifestyle. Just got to see where my career I want to start that. I don't want to start that too young, and I don't want to take away from my jiu-jitsu, because at the end of the day, my jiu-jitsu is my biggest goal. I don't want anything hurting that. So, if within the next couple of years I start to accomplish my jiu-jitsu goals and I start feeling good about those goals, then I'll start to transition that way too.
Well, what a life. I gotta tell you. I mean, in such a young age where you've accomplished so much, and it seems like there's so much ahead of you, that, there's so much to look forward to, and the positions that you find yourself in that are so amazing. But I think what's really impactful about all of this is that you impact so many kids every single day. Would you consider that being the most rewarding part of your day?
Yeah, definitely. No, for sure. I love being a big part of the kids' lives. They're a big part of my life too. It's an exchange. They help me with a lot of my patience. But they're just cool to be able to guide in this journey, especially being one of those kids that was in the kids program. I know exactly what they're feeling. Like I know what's happening in your minds. Like I'm like, listen, it's okay. It's hard, but we can persevere. And I just love being a big part of their lives, and they're also a big part of my life.
Well, I hope you continue doing this. I hope continue impacting all these kids, no matter what the life takes you, because I think a lot of those kids do need it. A lot of those kids do need the structure, they need that leadership, and you have their experience. You've been there, so it's easy and relatable between the two sides. And I think more coaches, just like yourself, could be useful around the jiu-jitsu community and continue impacting the next generation, because who knows where all of this is going. Crazy times ahead of us.
Right? I think it's just gonna get crazier.
Yeah, probably. Listen, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've been at this for well over an hour, so I do want to be respectful of your time. But before we start wrapping this up, if anybody wants to follow up with this connect with you, and as a follow up to this conversation, if anybody wants to reach out to you, and would love to, especially women or parents or kids, who want to connect and seek advice from you, from all of the experience, where are you available? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, best way to reach me definitely would be through Instagram. Jasmine Rocha BJJ, probably the best way to reach out. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, or you're just like want to pick my brain, I'm all for it. I answer people all the time, especially parents who are like, how do I keep my kid to do this? Or how do I, what am I supposed to do? Or if you're, a woman in jiu-jitsu and you're like, I feel this way, or I don't know how to deal with this, just reach out. Feel free. Don't stress it.
Well, I'll make sure that all the links are posted in the description of this episode. So if you guys want to connect directly, feel free to do it. What a great resource, as we always have. And then, Professor, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this last hour with me. And again, I'll be sitting back on the sidelines watching you continue growing and continue impacting jiu-jitsu community. And thank you for everything that you've done. So what a beautiful life.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed being on this podcast.
Let's wrap this up for today.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.